Today, I want to talk to you about what we need to do to make sure that we don't start off a wonderful romance after it's already obvious that it's DOA or dead on arrival. And I see way too many people doing this. So I think it's worth taking some time to talk about what people need to be looking for to make sure they're building their relationships on a firm foundation instead of pursuing maybe for months or years something that's just dead.
And this is common in your practice.
It's common, yeah, even in life, because if we all were to think back to how many people we have dated or fallen in love with or had crushes on, and then had maybe a chance to sort of work on it a little bit, and then how few of those actually worked out? Well, virtually all of them failed to work out.
Yeah. Or if they do work out, it seems like they're in something that doesn't necessarily look like the ideal relationship to be in.
Yeah. So,
and you believe, though, it's the foundation in order to have a successful relationship. One of your core beliefs is it starts with building a firm foundation.
Yeah. And that's whether I intend to get married or not, whether I intend to move in with anybody or not. I think all relationships need to start off this way. And I think there's some really practical things we can do. The audience on our Instagram and TikTok platforms regularly question me on this kind of stuff. And I do understand it because everybody out there has been just hurt so very much over and over by relationship failures and, frankly, the abuse that's going on within relationships. And I think there's a way to love intelligently and to minimize the traumatic suffering that so many of us have experienced, that we can feel so much more optimistic about love and so much happier as we explore that whole world of, the opposite sex or, depending on our orientation, the same sex, where we could just have a great time and really enjoy this part of being human.
So what would you say would be the first start to this as far as like building a foundation goes? Do you first have to even know what exactly you're looking for?
Well, this is what's really hard about this is that, like everything else in my set of ideas I try to share with people, everything is connected to everything else. So whenever I start pulling on one thread, it inevitably leads to another idea. And it might sound like I'm rambling or that I'm not really thinking things through. But when we start, as you say, at the beginning, where do we start with this? It's like, well, it depends where you are, right? Because in the journey, if you haven't yet figured out that dating is important, maybe you start right there, that I do need to get to know people. And dating is, at least in my mind, it's a highly structured, intentional interview that gives me the chance to interview candidates applying for a role as the lead in that epic motion picture that is my life. And likewise, she would be doing the same thing with me and that vast array of other suitors who are vying for a place in her life. But even before that, the rule on dating, there's so much misinformation and misdirection going on right now. I think the rule on dating is really that it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, I don't think many people know that.
I think a lot of people are so hung up about it and so anxious about it that they forget that it's supposed to just be fun. And it doesn't matter if she and I go to an electric go-kart stadium and we're racing around the track. It doesn't matter if she and I go to an opera or anything else, as long as she thinks it's fun and I think it's fun, or at least one of us is willing to explore what the other person is laying down as an option, then it can be really fun. And the fun may not be just in the activity, but in the sharing of that activity. And that goes for even those relationships where, upon getting to know the other person better, I find out, hey, not really for me. But that doesn't mean the date can't be fun.
But to go back to the fun part, do you have any idea as to why people aren't having fun. I feel like I have some ideas.
Well, no, I want to hear your ideas first. I mean, seriously, because
Um,
I have a tiny piece of this understanding,
I think
but
there's a lot of pressure to like make something happen. There's a lot of
mostly on the part of the guy. Would you agree?
I think it's both, actually.
Well,
I've heard a lot of men say like women want to be committed within a few months, and I've even talked to some women, and it seems like they want to be chosen by the guy. So
mhm.
sometimes if the guy has more of a relaxed approach, it seems like there's a rush to make it to put like meaning on it or something. I feel like that's one of the biggest things. And then there's also, I feel like people
Mhm.
are maybe overwhelmed, especially like online dating. I know women are trying to just inundated with like so many requests and messages to where it's probably like very hard to keep track, and people's lives are so busy and they're just trying in their and whatever they're going through personally. I feel like there's just a lot there that makes it difficult for people just to have a good time together.
Yeah, I think based on what you're saying, I do share a belief that we tend to be very focused on the happily ever after outcomes
Yeah.
instead of just the joy of the process of really getting to know another human being, that can be so enjoyable in and of itself that I don't really need to close the sale, so to
Mhm.
speak. I can just savor the pleasure of her company and the process of getting to know her.
I would also say maybe sometimes people um, they have specific things that they want to do. Kind of, we talked about this before with you with backpacking, and it's like sometimes people are like they're like, these are the activities I do. I want a partner looking for this thing. So I feel like that's another thing that makes. I feel like what you're saying, the joy of getting to know people, like that to me, I love that too. But I feel like I don't know if most people have that or that understanding of dating. I feel like if you go with dating in that approach where you are there just for that to but I feel like I don't know if people really want to get to know people. I, I think they want to just a mirror, the whole narcissistic timeline where they're looking for a mirror image of themselves to make that they could love. And so, yeah, that's a lot, but you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I'm just, it's sort of breathtaking when you say it out loud. I think you're right. Um, I think, it's not that people are stupid or that they're developmentally delayed. I think it's just never been framed. The activity of dating has never been framed maybe quite that way.
It's never been defined as how you would define it. A fun joy to get to know the other person who they authentically are.
Yeah. While at the
That's
same time, I'm conducting this interview to see if maybe we have the makings of establishing that strategic alliance where we join forces in order to face life's challenges together as a team, and everybody gets focused on closing the sale, it seems
mm.
like. And I think we'd all relax and enjoy the process a lot more if we realize that's not exactly the step we're on right now. There's steps to this.
But that's the thing too. I think it goes to your whole idea of holding a relationship loosely. It's like entering a date without any expectations except fun and getting to know somebody. That's kind of like what you have to do. And those are like three big simple things that are really hard, I feel like, for a lot of people, because some people are like, I'm going on a date. This is my 10th date. I just want to like meet someone already. It's like that. Who's just like, so it's like, is this the person? Is this the one? I feel like that's a running thing that's
Yeah.
happening in people's minds. And it's like, they have to like, it's like, no matter if some guy's like, oh, I just asked the most beautiful woman out and she's going to go out with me. And then that guy is going to be projecting and building a fantasy life.
Mhm.
And then he's going to go there and then he may sacrifice who he is to please this woman rather than showing up completely who I am and having it be where she could be like, nah, this ain't for me.
Yeah, and I'm hoping everybody understood what I just understood you to say, because we've talked before, and
Mhm.
this desire so badly, I so badly want a girlfriend, let's say, that I'm willing to put my better foot forward. I really want her to like me. I'm going to censor any comments that I think might be ruffling her feathers. And I'm just going to, try to be the man she's fantasizing about being with.
Mm-hmm.
When actually, I have so many amazing people in our social media audience, and they write in. Some of the women write in with these amazing statements of, "I'm not looking for big muscles. I'm not looking for a guy who makes 100,000 a year or more. I'm really just looking for a great relationship where we can be equals, where we can talk, and it can feel safe to share our feelings and our lives with each other." And I think if men knew that, dating could be so much more relaxing and so much more fun.
I think I just got it. You need to create a dating app.
So this is the second time.
Inspired.
This is the second time you mentioned the phrase dating app, and I just want to give a shout out
you're
to
not.
all the other people out there who hate dating apps. I hate dating apps because I believe our species has evolved to conduct our own sort of dating algorithm or mate search algorithm.
Yeah.
And we do that when we're engaged in social activities, like attending a neighbor's barbecue or something, where we might have 5 conversations with 5 new people. And in 5 minutes time, we find out if this man or this woman is friendly or not, whether they like me or not, whether they actually have a sense of humor or not. Do they even think my sense of humor is funny or not? And the list goes on, that in 5 minutes, when we talk about the efficiency and effectiveness of dating apps, I think the human mind is far more efficient and effective once informed.
Yeah.
Once informed, it does a really great job. But a dating app, you really don't get much. You get this tiny little bio that says, well, everything that they're about. You get a photograph. And those photographs, no matter how flattering or unflattering, they really don't convey what we see when we lay our eyes on someone and look into their eyes, because they,
But it gives people, I would say, to argue for them, it gives people a place to at least let people know that they're available in looking. Because it's like nowadays too, it's a little tricky. Like some people, like a woman could be like, "Oh, I'm out all the time, getting approached by men all the time, just sick of it, tired of it."
Yeah, I talked to a woman who said that, and I said, I can only think of one thing worse. And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, never having a man approach you." And she said, "Oh, yeah, I guess that would be worse." So, I think one of the things that's hard is that we lack, as a society, we lack the social skills that Victorians had when a known person would introduce us to the other person unknown to us.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much safer. And then there's all this, bar talk or ladies' man talk where it's really about seduction. And it's all very cringe, at that point. But just to be the guy who's friendly and says, "Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you." And then, make some safe conversation and then to let go of it. And if it's not going any farther, then that's fine.
Yeah.
I think even the glitches that you mentioned in the way I propose, they're easily addressed. And they also have the value of educating us regarding our needed social skill development.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you there. And I mean, I definitely feel like that's a big thing you promote: no dating apps, getting out in public, interacting with other people, doing activities you enjoy, meeting people there. But that's also within the context of having fun, holding it loosely, getting to know people. So it's like a pre-dating almost, right?
It is. And, I haven't even talked about the things I want to talk about yet. And we're already, 10, 15 minutes into this conversation, because although it's not complicated, it seems complicated for those of us who are new at it, because no one is teaching us how to do this. And that's a real problem. For me, okay, now I'll throw out a little bunny trail of my own to go down. I think we need a better concept of sex education that would include mate selection and how to do that. And we don't. Instead, we're still learning where's the vagina and what does a penis do and where do babies come from? And
Which everybody pretty much knows before they even enter into those classes.
right, because we live in the age of the internet. And if you're 8 years old and you have a question about where babies really come from, you just go and ask, the AI, and the AI will explain it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need that kind of basic anatomy and physiology class that we get.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, and I talk to really young clients all the time who just got out of high school or were out of high school just a few years ago, and they said it hasn't changed a bit in 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So
I learned absolutely nothing from those classes or that class because it's only one.
Well, I was fascinated to find out where babies come from because
I feel like I knew that already because my parents read us books like in
the
different
Cabbage
ages.
Patch.
It was like
It was a stork.
it was like a 4 to 6 age, and then like an 8 to 10, and then like there was something like that, and then you just read it.
You had great parents.
Yeah, but they read it like one.
My single mother was very busy.
I feel like they read it just like next page. It wasn't like a sit down, have a discussion. I feel like they did a good job, but I feel like you could definitely have a deeper discussion on it. But relationships, as far as mate selection and picking girlfriends and relationships, that was just but whatever you saw on TV, movies, in real life, heard on songs, and then you just applied that to your relationship. And then when something went wrong or something, there was abuse or stuff we'll get into later, it's just like, well, this is how relationships are.
Yeah, or he's just a terrible person, or men can be terrible, or women can be this or that, and really no real understanding of what's going on. So if we can build a house or we can build rocket ships that go to the moon, I think we can build good relationships. I think especially ours being a social species, this is our wheelhouse. It's what we're especially good at. And I think it's really for lack of training that it never occurs to us that establishing real intimacy with someone is about making sure our words, our conversations are safe. And to do that, to be able to safely share my life with another person, at some point, I think it's appropriate for the man or the woman, the boy or the girl, to begin sharing one of their core values. And in this case, for me, it's the value of having an abuse-free relationship. So the question sometimes comes up in a date. So how is it you're still single? Well, and the answer is, I just haven't found what I'm really looking for. And what I'm really looking for is someone who's willing to commit to an abuse-free life and an abuse-free relationship just with me. And
can we do a role play really quick?
Sure. You want to be
Okay, you're saying that to me.
Oh, and you're the girl?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just looking for, I'd like to experience what it's like to be safe in an abuse-free relationship.
That sounds ridiculous. There's always going to be, what if you do something that pisses me off? I want to tell you. And
well, telling me that you're upset, telling me you're angry, telling me you're pissed off, that's not abuse.
But sometimes I want to raise my voice because that's just how I am.
I'm not.
I was raised.
I haven't been a stranger to that impulse, and I have raised my voice more than once in my life, I'm sorry to say. But I think it's an impulse I can avoid. I think the fear there is, oh, the other person won't hear me. They won't take me seriously. They won't pay attention to what I'm saying, that this really matters to me. And what if I committed to, really listening to you? And when you say you're really angry or you're really pissed off, they say, oh, well, tell me more. When did you start getting pissed off?
Yeah, but every relationship I have, it's kind of starts like that. And then sooner or later, I just get annoyed with my partner and he'll say something and I'll just go off.
Well, I'm shocked that you would, because I'm thinking this is the first time you've ever lied to me and we're on our first date. And because I don't think you've ever had a guy say this to you. I want an abuse-free relationship and I'm willing to listen and I invite you to test me. And all I want is to not be abused.
Yeah, and scene.
Okay.
But you've had interactions like that, right? Where people are, because I feel like some people, like I just had a conversation the other day where I was talking to a friend and her parents are abusive towards one another and yell and scream, but they still love each other and they're still together. What would you say to that?
I've loved both my own children and my partners at different stages of my life and yelled. It's not like I'm a stranger to abuse, but for the last 3 decades or more, I've learned, no, it really doesn't work because, although we're pretty bright as a species, once somebody gets abusive, my amygdala, that part of the brain that monitors threats, that my amygdala kind of takes over. And now I'm on guard looking for what's going to happen next. And my prefrontal cortex, where all the beautiful executive decision making gets done, that is pretty much offline. And I'm not really functioning. So I'm not going to be capable of, really high levels of intimacy. So that's what
By high levels of intimacy, why is that important?
Well, again, I define intimacy as the ability to safely share my life with someone. And as soon as I'm feeling threatened, that evaporates. I'm not safely sharing my life with them.
And then what happens to the relationship?
Hard to say because, theoretically, the person you were role playing could say, wait a minute, I'm sorry, that's not who I want to be in this encounter. It could be that one of us has the presence of mind to say, hold up, I don't like what we're doing right now. Can we start over? And there's a lot of things we could do to recover from a slip. But what the biggest danger, I think, is that we fail to dream that the abuse-free relationship is even a possibility because we so normalize abuse.
Yeah. And that, I think, is a deep-seated belief in the mind of almost everyone who exists on this planet.
I agree, and I can't disagree with you.
You're trying to change something that's universally accepted as true within relationships because eventually the couple is they're going to get on each other's nerves.
Yes. So I have to plead guilty to the charge. I am trying to change that. And I know that I can't do it by myself. I'm one therapist living in a relatively small town. But I do believe that as we gather our audience and we all keep talking about these things, there will be a growing consciousness that abuse is a choice. And living an abuse-free life is also a choice. And it's not a choice for a couple. It's a choice for each individual one of us. It's an existential issue that has to do with what kind of person do I want to be? In my case, what kind of man do I want to be? Do I want to, when I was a little boy, I would dream of growing up to become big and strong. And I never dreamed of growing up to become big and strong and abusive. But I did become abusive, and at a really young age. Before I even hit puberty, I was already abusing my little brother. And then for the majority of my teen years, yes, the same thing. And then I gradually started seeing there's no room in my life for this. I hate this. This is not who I want to be. And I'm a guy you would think who would know better because I was raised in a time and in a family where I was taught boys don't hit girls and that disrespect is wrong. And I saw my mom physically battered by my dad. So I really had this desire to be abuse-free. But then life,
you weren't conscious of that you had a desire to be abuse-free.
No, I wasn't really. I wasn't conscious of it. And then when
then life happened.
Yeah, you encounter.
Because you didn't have that sex education or mate selection.
I didn't have a human sex education that contextualized my sexuality so that when I did fall in love, it was not the exception. It was more the norm that one of us would criticize the other. One of us would guilt trip the other. One of us would use name calling or put downs to try to control the other person's behavior. And when that doesn't work, as two people get closer, they start raising their voices, or they use a demeaning tone of voice that says in all but words, "You idiot." And then we get to the point where even if that's not working, I have to obviously somehow dial up the volume a little bit more. And I just maybe invade your body space, or put my finger to your chest and, start intimidating you physically, or throwing things, breaking things. There's so many ways of being controlling and so many ways of abusing the other person. And it really takes a concerted effort, not a one-day decision, but a concerted effort. And we've done podcasts on this, and we will continue to do podcasts on this. But this big picture is part of mate selection, or I should say this part of it is part of the big picture. It's part of dating, and it's part of eventually laying that foundation that would ensure I have a really decent shot at having a great relationship. But if I fail to take care of this, if I fail to ask myself the question, well, what about it, Steve? Do you want to become an abusive man? Yes or no? Well, no. Well, then I have to stop being abusive. But for me, it also means I have to terminate abuse directed to me by others. So I have to develop this whole other skill set that is actually very challenging for most people. And it's something all of us pretty much try to avoid. Remember, it's a romance, or an attempt at romance. And so we're trying so hard to get along. We want so badly to not fight, for example. Not remembering, and this is a very important statement to remember, and I hope everybody hearing it memorizes it. Conflict is an essential and inevitable part of every intimate relationship. And you don't need to write that down because I know you memorized it, but
it's ingrained in my brain.
Good, and even you and I, we work together well, we enjoy each other. But we have conflict, you and I, because we see the world from literally two different positions, two different places in life. You are horribly young and callow. I am incredibly old and decrepit, but also wise beyond understanding. And between the two of us, we're at different developmental stages of life looking for different things quite often. And so it's not unusual or weird that we would have a different point of view, and that for us to argue, our society doesn't even teach us how to argue without getting abusive and getting dismissive and disrespectful. And how many times have you said, "All right, old man," never, I can say you've never said that. And I've never, come down on you for I've never called you lad or boy or anything like that, because
Listen to me, boy.
I want to have an abuse-free exchange because I want to learn and get smarter too. So if we can do that, the one thing every woman I've ever dated knows so much more about, among many other things as well, she knows herself. I don't know who she is. And for me to just shut up and have the pleasure of listening and learning from her what it is that works for her. And likewise, I want to share with her what works for me. And for me, I'm curious if she'd be open to having an abuse-free relationship with someone that was really based on equality. And like you said in the role play, I mean, there are people who are just so unnerved by the idea of this. It's such a radical concept that they can't even imagine such a thing as being possible.
Do you think people who are in an abusive relationship do love each other?
Well, sometimes yes and sometimes no, because there are people out there who are abusing me, and I wouldn't say they love me, even though we're having enough of a relationship that we speak to one another back and forth. And that could be male so-called friends or female romantic interests, or it could be even a social group that I'm a part of. So abuse is its own separate problem. But I think we would agree abuse is not respect, and it is not loving. So yeah, we're not perfect, but I think if we focus on stopping our abuse, and that is the second part of this two-pronged attack, right? I can't abuse you if I want to have an abuse-free life, but I also can't tolerate abuse from you. So I have to confront you. And for me to do that effectively, I think I have to at least inquire as to your own ethos regarding abuse. Do you think abuse is okay? Yes or no? And are you interested in having an abuse-free professional relationship or an abuse-free workplace or an abuse-free friendship? And if the two of us can agree on that, we're beginning, I said, to build that great foundation. But without that agreement, I think it's time to press the pause button.
Well, I think without the agreement, I think many people are living in relationships without that agreement.
Absolutely.
One. And then I think
I know I did.
Yeah, I have too. And you even say abuse is like eye rolling or criticism. Anything less than respect is abuse.
Yeah, like what I just did.
Yeah. But people in relationships who are in abusive relationships, according to you, from what I know about you and this whole thing about, pre-gaming the situation before getting into commitment and building that foundation, if they do build a relationship that has abuse in it, it's never going to reach its ultimate potential.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that characterization, because the whole idea is that we're forming a strategic alliance, the two of us, and that we're going to be facing life's challenges as a team. But if my teammate feels that it's okay here and there to bury a knife in my back, if my teammate feels that, well, when they're really upset, it's okay to yell at me, basically what they're saying is at will. I have the right at will to express my anger in a way that's abusive, or express my disappointment or my fear in a way that's abusive and controlling. And the problem with that is that pesky amygdala. If I could just get it removed, maybe this wouldn't bother me. But I do have an amygdala, and I do monitor threats even when I'm not thinking about them. And then we're not really functioning at that higher level. And I don't feel really safe, even if I can't use the language of safety. I may not be comfortable saying, well, no, I don't feel safe in my marriage. No, I don't feel safe in my dating relationship or with my girlfriend. But men don't feel safe often.
Yeah, they're terrified to say what they really want to say to the woman they're with.
Yes, and I think for women, it's even more true because they are smaller. And in any discussion where there's a confrontation, I think I think the woman is risking more in some ways. He's risking losing her and losing love. She's risking maybe all of that and her safety, physical safety.
I'd also say too, it seems like, I don't know your thoughts on this. So intimacy is the ability to safely share your life with one another. So if abuse is there, that can't ever fully happen. But to me, in order for a relationship to be sustainable, especially somebody who's in a monogamous, committed relationship, if you don't have that safety, your evolution as a human is almost cut off in a way. I feel like that lack of safety then perpetuates so many other problems that the relationship has, because I feel like if a relationship can be sustainable, it needs to have two people who are growing and evolving and changing.
Well, amen to all of that. And then you throw in the variable in the future development that we're living in the same home together. And as baseball teaches us so clearly, when you've reached home, you're safe. And yet so many of us around the world live in homes that aren't homes at all. It isn't safe at all. It is a place where I may not be getting yelled at right now, but I might be getting yelled at any time because I'm not in control of that. So we get together to form these strategic alliances, to perhaps share our lives as a married couple or as an unmarried partnership. We get together to build a home life together and to build family. And there's an implied warranty in all of that. The implied warranty is I'm not going to attack her. I shouldn't have to say that out loud because it's so obvious, right?
Mhm.
And yet we need to say it out loud because that is the danger. That so this isn't like a small little tiny detail like learning to say please or thank you. This is a big deal. If I don't feel safe at home, if she doesn't feel safe in her own home, then she really doesn't have a home. And then, yes, I might still love the other person because love can endure. It just can't endure at a high level, and it can't be particularly enjoyable. I can still love my children when I'm yelling at them. I would give my life for my children even when I was the angriest I've ever been and yelling at them and all of that. But that doesn't mean my yelling at them helped establish our house as a safe home. It did not. And so,
But
yeah.
you were the man.
Yeah. Yeah, we have, and it's not just masculinity or manhood. It's really countless irrational beliefs that support and undergird our resistance to change on this issue. We would be really an outlier in our communities if we didn't abuse each other. That's one of the saddest observations I've ever had of human culture. But it's not normal to verbally, emotionally, physically attack people we say we love. That is not a normal thing at all. And we need to get past that. And I do believe that the people watching this, when they write and share their comments, both the people who get it and the people who don't, let's call them haters, the people who say, well, I would if women could just get their act together, or, well, I would if men weren't so behind in development. No, you get to go ahead and keep hating, but every time we have a conversation, we are pushing the ball of understanding farther and farther toward the goalpost. Every time we engage in these conversations, which frankly, we never have anywhere else. And that's why I love the internet right now, because except for those pesky dating apps, social media, if done right, and podcasting with all of the social media follow-up can really be a place where we're physically safe and we get to pause and take a look. I can write hateful screeds against men or women who, say hateful things to me. But again, back to that existential question, is that really the man I want to be? Or do I want to be part of the change, part of helping the human race figure out this is not the way to do this. This is not the way to do home, family, intimacy, love. We're missing everything by our insistence that abuse is normal and that it's our prerogative and we have the right to express our feelings. I'm just being authentic, damn it. I'm being my authentic self. But the truth is, I can exchange my feelings with anybody emphatically, passionately, with a passionate tone, even an angry tone, without abusing them. I don't need to abuse anybody to communicate. We did invent this thing called words and language. And so, yeah, I think we can go ahead and communicate, especially with the people we ostensibly claim to love, or we're trying to connect with them. Mm-hmm. Why isn't our relationship working out? I've been yelling at you for 5 years. Why aren't we close yet? And it's, well, yeah, that's what therapists mean when they talk about self-defeating behavior.
So this is the foundation that needs to be set prior to even committing into a relationship.
Oh, Lord, yes. I'm so sorry I didn't say that as explicitly as you did.
Yeah, and we talked about before even entering in, it's like dating should be fun. No dating apps, get out there. And you also talk about creating a life worth living.
Yeah,
is a
I
big
think
part of, I feel like, the
it is.
social aspect of getting out there.
Boy, you're really pulling on another lot of threads.
Hmm.
The sweater is going to come completely unraveled. So yeah, I mean, as a man, I believe a woman has the same responsibility to develop a life worth living
Hmm.
before considering even settling down and sharing that life with another
Hmm.
person. But it's a process, right? It's under development. And I meet men all the time who've never thought about developing a life worth living. And the moment I say that, the truth of the statement is so self-evident that yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
And they get on it. They start developing that life worth living, their interests, their activities, their circle of male friends. But that can take years. I'm not saying, oh, you can't date during those years you're
Yeah.
developing a life worth living. Go ahead and date. Just let it practice the fun part.
But I'd also say really quick on that, it's almost similar to abuse-free life, how it's a choice. I feel it's also an existential question.
Yes.
Like, do you want to take responsibility for your life
Yes.
by seeing what's available and going out there and exploring and figuring out those things that bring you joy to your life? Did you say that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I would even say if our education system, along with parents, talking about these things from the time we're young, even prepubescent children could hear and understand the phrase, a life worth living. Develop a life worth living so you can share a life. If you have that life worth having, then you can share it. But if you don't have that life that you've developed worth living, then you don't have one worth sharing.
And I think really quick on that, go back to dating, I feel like most people may not have that fully, and they're looking for the completion of that, not within themselves, but with another person.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that
I did.
creates the neediness to get into a relationship to be complete. And
Yeah.
that could then cause some issues. It also doesn't allow you to enter into the dating scene fully able to let go with not holding it loosely, as you like to say.
I do like to say holding it loosely because I have hopes and expectations if I were dating, right?
Yeah,
And
of
I
course.
really want the evening to be fun. I want her to like me. I want to.
But if we went on a date and I was like, no thanks, not for me, and I never called you again, you wouldn't obsess over me. You wouldn't be chasing after me. You wouldn't be being like, oh, that was the perfect one for me, because you say too that you want a partner who's crazy about you. And
Yeah, by declining any further interaction, you make it pretty clear you're not that into me. And it's also true.
but that rejection is not gonna like pierce you and like
No, because before I ever went out on that date, I had or was in the process of developing a life worth living. And it's as if you've done me a favor in that you've handed me back that life worth living. And now I don't need to spend any more time or energy or money developing our relationship. I'm free to move on to a different possibility in the near future. And I do believe more in that 1950s model of dating where I think it's really okay to date multiple people and get to know multiple people because you're just getting to know them and finding out if they're fun, if they're interesting. And none of us, when we're young, know what the world has to offer. Young men don't understand. And I was one of those young men.
yeah.
I had no comprehension of how incredibly wonderful the world of women was. I had no idea that women could be as amazing as they were. It was literally, it wasn't just surprising to me, it was rather jaw-dropping to me because I didn't know women came in those configurations. Those kinds of women weren't part of my upbringing. And I think it's the same for women, where if they could do everything we're talking about, from living an abuse-free life to building intimacy to, establishing an abuse-free relationship,
Resolving
conflicts in an abuse-free manner, I think they would be rather amazed at the world of men and what the world of men has to offer. So it's rather I don't know, charming and wonderful and magical, even, I would say, to get into that process. But I want to go back. I know you want to ask me something, right?
Well, I was just gonna say really quick too.
Okay, if
It's
it's
just
quick, then
like,
I'll just shut up.
well, you could go to your thing then.
No, you go, you go.
I was just gonna say, it's like if you're on a date and you do have these conversations and you decide that you're not compatible or it's not going to work out, just to be able to like just let it go is just so freeing and helpful.
Yes,
And to not have to then, if even if the guy was a jerk and like the woman went on a date, the guy was a real jerk, to be like, yeah, he's just not for me, and to just accept that and to not grasp on to his negative traits, or a guy too to do it with a woman if she was just whatever things he didn't like about her.
well,
I
and
feel
they
like a lot
both
of
get
times
to,
people take on that stuff and they
yes,
start generalizing
yes.
who people are.
Well, that's the irrational part. Well, women are just then this one thing, or men are just this one thing. And I really think those kind of dating stories where he behaved badly, she behaved badly, those make great stories for when you get back together with your friends later on.
Yeah.
Whether it's her with her friends or him with his friends, they get to, and can you believe it? She said, or he did this thing. And the friends are mostly going to probably agree. But sometimes true friends are going to look at us and say, well, why would that be a problem? And either they don't understand, or maybe they do understand, and I'm the one who doesn't understand. And so, because there's so many truths that we think are like etched in stone, when actually it's just something we grew up with and we never questioned.
Yeah.
Like abuse is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And and I know that I have offended women by asking this question. I think my thing kind of is, I'm glad you made this point, because my comment was that so many of us in the process of dating, especially when we're younger, we lie. And if someone said to me back when I was, say, 20, I'm just looking for a relationship that's abuse free, I don't know that I'm so much lying to her as I would be lying to myself, because I really didn't have the skill set to talk about my feelings, tell the truth about who I am, confront when I think there was something worth confronting, abstain from all the abuse, the guilt tripping, and everything else. I just, it's a new concept, and it's something we have to be mature enough to handle, right?
So you just say, yeah, sure.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not even like to really understand it and comprehend it. It takes some time. Like I've been, working alongside you for 5 years. So it's like it's taken me, and I feel like there's always new layers, new levels to it, new things you understand about something so simple. It's like
something so simple. You said it. That is so true. I am still learning.
Yeah.
Too.
It's the whole thing. I always go back to like the Buddhist teaching on presence, or be present, be in the moment. It's like, what does that actually mean? It's so simple to say it, but then there's deeper and deeper layers of understanding the more you kind of like work within the present, work within the abuse-free life, work within the intentional interview, work within having fun dating. I feel like there's greater riches to be found in all of these.
Well, I tend to be wordy. Mm-hmm. And when I go on social media, on my Instagram, for example, I'll try to be kind by responding in a longer segment to someone. But I'm regularly impressed, like daily, I am impressed with the men and women who say one sentence that is so deep, so profound, that it says it all. Mm-hmm. And you could just descend into the truth of it and let it permeate your consciousness. It feels like forever.
Yeah.
And so that's one reason I love social media right now. This is going to sound weird perhaps, but I even so appreciate the haters out there, because they too are part of our emotional ecosystem, and they give us an opportunity on the internet to learn how to handle them, practicing detachment and realizing, okay, what they're saying is really not about me. It's about them, whether they're hating on men or they're hating on women or they're saying something really vicious. Because I'm safe. I'm probably not even in the same state as they are, and I will likely never meet them. So I get to just kind of deal with myself. And that's, this thing about lying, though, I think so many of us really want it to work out, that we're willing to minimize and lie to ourselves as much as anybody. And I think that's when, having made a commitment, see, I won't date somebody if they don't make at least the commitment. Yes, I do want that. Yes, I'm willing to commit, and then
To the abuse-free life.
to the abuse-free life. And then as we date, and this has happened a couple of times
You
for
test
me
it out.
before. Yeah, I have to test the waters. It's part of my due diligence, right?
Mhm.
So,
And I know what you're going to say, and I do like your,
what am I going to say?
you're going to say sometimes the abuse will come up. If it comes out like 3 times, it's like a 3 strikes you're out rule. And then eventually you'll say, would you like to renegotiate our terms?
Oh my God. Like, I'm going to be honest with everybody watching this. He really did know what I was going to say. That is exactly what I was going to say. So yes.
But I love that line. I feel like that's such a great line to have. Like, would you like to renegotiate our terms? Because it's like you make the agreement to commit to this thing, and then if it's broken, you're not coming out there. Why did you? We said we're not going to abuse each other.
Lied to me.
Yeah. It's
No,
just
because it's human, right? Like I make mistakes. I remember I was in a relationship with a lovely woman. We got into a little bit of an argument. It wasn't too bad. And at some point, even though I'd been working on this for years in my own life, I looked at her and I called her a name. And I said, "You're really a poor sport." Now I know that's not a swear word, and I know there's going to be some people out there watching this who are going to roll their eyes like, "Oh yeah, big deal." But it's the same principle, whether I use a vulgar term or I say something that's sort of underwhelming like poor sport. And the hurt look in her eyes, because she knew I had committed to an abuse-free life with her, and the hurt look in her eyes immediately pierced my heart. Oh, and I knew that I was going to owe her an apology. And within a matter of seconds, I looked at her and I said, "And I had no right to call you that name. I am so sorry. I can commit to never doing that again." And then she hurt me even more. And more than her look did. She looked at me and she said, meaningfully and sincerely, so sad. She said, "Well, I thought that you were being abusive, but I didn't say anything because I figured you would just worm your way out of it." So, so she had zero faith in my integrity. And I know that that's about her, but still so very sad, right? And that's me after years of working on this. So then, eventually I met the woman who would later become my wife, and, the same kinds of things would happen between us. But whether it was because we hadn't had as much trauma or because we were just in a better place for other reasons, I don't know. But I know when we did violate any of the rules about being respectful, and I do practice the rule of 3 strikes, you're out. But
not over like a year span. It's more of like if it happens consecutively because
early in the dating relationship. Yeah, like if 3 years went by, I'm still not holding on to that first one.
Yeah, and then you're like, the second one, we're at the year 32, Sharon. You got one more strike.
And then you're gone.
You're gone.
You're out of here. No, it's not like that, but this one woman, okay, a different woman in our dating relationship, she got mad at me and she said, "Well, don't act stupid." And we were on the phone. Most of the abuse seemed to happen on the phone for some reason. And I just grew quiet and I said, and she went on talking, and I said, about calling me stupid. I didn't call you stupid. Denial and minimization. I said, "Don't act so stupid." And
much better.
Yeah. I said, "Well, what kind of people act stupid?" And then that was her turn to fall silent. And I said, "I just really need you to not abuse me that way, and to take responsibility for it and apologize when you do that. And she did, to her credit. But then a week later, she stood me up on a date, which is profound disrespect.
Mhm.
And okay, that was strike number 2. And then strike number 3 was another phone call where this is the old days where you could hang up on a rotary phone and the other person could hear the sound of it being slammed. Well, she hung up on me in the middle of my talking. And again, I didn't have to wait to be called horrible names. I didn't have to wait to be screamed at, because the deal was no abuse. And I just really needed somebody in my life who was capable of getting that, because it's not that complicated.
Mhm.
And so we would never do something like that with our bosses. We would never do something like that with a judge in a courtroom. The vast majority of us wouldn't, at least.
Unless the boss or judge are abusive.
Even with that, even sometimes when they're abusive, because we have a profound concern over our freedom
Yeah.
or justice being the outcome, or we have a profound concern for our income and our family's well-being, we will sometimes take abuse, which I think is a mistake.
Mhm.
I think that is a mistake. But generally, though, we have a lot more resilience, is what I'm saying, than we exhibit with people we feel safe with. We feel so much safer with people we love. Some people would say familiarity is what precedes contempt. It breeds contempt. But I think for the truly morally driven individual who wants to do the right thing existentially, not because it would hurt her feelings, but because that's not who I want to be, that person can say, look, I'm just not ready to talk about this right now. I'm really upset and I don't trust myself, so I'm going to take a time out. And can we agree to come back to this later when we can agree mutually to talk about it?
And what happened with that woman, really quick?
The one who hung up on me?
Did you tell her?
I faded away.
You didn't tell her directly, hey,
I didn't angrily grab the phone and call her right back and don't you dare hang up on me.
But you didn't say this is again.
I didn't say it's done.
You didn't say it's done. I can't.
No, I didn't.
I'm looking for.
I don't need. I think it's a little silly. We have that phrase in our culture now where I needed closure.
You don't need that.
I don't need closure. I need to let go and move on.
Okay.
That's what I need.
So you just let it go and then it just faded away.
Just let it go, and I just never bothered to call her back. And she did call me back multiple times. And I said, I realize now I'm not the right guy for you, which is Ing speak for you're not the right woman for me. But and
that's what it's all about, getting back to the compatibility and that was part of the intentional interview, essentially.
Essentially.
She was interviewing with the Abuse-Free Life and seeing whether or not that could be a thing. And so that gave you the information you needed to not proceed.
Yes.
And that's what all this stuff is about, building that foundation before getting into a commitment, because every commitment you kind of say, it seems like, layers on more and more responsibility, and you kind of get deeper and deeper enmeshed with the person. It's harder to get out. So it's like, you don't want to rush into something, intertwine, and be stuck in something that you don't know how to get out of.
Exactly. You said it exactly the way I'm thinking it, but you don't read my mind, so you don't know what I'm thinking now.
No.
There's another rule of 3, and you probably would remember it as soon as I started talking. For me, when I'm dating, and I would encourage everybody to think this way, because the French have a saying that in English is rendered, he who marries in haste repents at his leisure. There's no rush for any of us to close the sale. We don't have to move anybody in right away. If we're having trouble making the rent, then we need to make more money, not get a girlfriend. And so I think a part of the taking it a little slower is that I need to have at least 3 good fights with the person I'm considering taking on as a mate. And I don't mean starting a fight in a games playing sort of way. Your mother sucks. Nothing like that. I mean, really having a sincere difference of opinion about something that we care about. It could be politics. It could be how to raise children. It could be money. It could be sex. It could be anything. But to have sincere arguments that are passionate, that are proof testing us, can we do this without abuse? And the goal there is for a couple, as part of a strategic alliance, are we able to resolve conflicts by putting our minds together and coming up with solutions that actually benefit both of us, that we're both pleased and delighted at the solution we come up with?
Mm-hmm.
If we can't do that, and a lot of couples cannot, they're incapable of solving problems as a team, I mean.
And that's problems that are keeping them apart.
It's problems that, yes, that bother them, that hurt them, that prevent them from drawing even closer together as if they were dancers on the dance floor. To dance more closely together. First of all, it's inevitable I'm going to step on her toes if we're dancing long enough. And she on my toes. But to get to a place where we really understand each other so well that we're not stepping on each other's toes. And it could be something like in one relationship I was in, my first marriage, in 18 years, we were never able to agree on what might go up on the walls. That's not exactly what I would call a complicated problem, but it was truly diagnostic in our case. I would suggest something, she would say, no, I don't like it. What would you like? I don't know. Then nothing would happen. And 18 years went by and we had blank walls in the house. And I love art and I love visual beauty, and to be able to enjoy home decor and all of that, it really matters to me. And it's part of sharing beauty with a partner. And that's just one tiny area of a bigger picture, right? So for us to be able to solve problems, and it's not just abuse that is the fly in the ointment, right? It could be passivity, like a pathological level of passivity, a refusal to engage. Well, I thought we could go on vacation. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Well, would you like to go here? No, not really. That's too far away. Well, what about here? Well, that's too hot. Well, what about here? And there's one objection after another until finally you come to realize it's not so much travel she doesn't want to do or he doesn't want to do, it's travel with you. And that, we want to avoid that truth because that's a painful thing to realize, that I've invested this much time and effort in somebody who really does not enjoy the pleasure of my company. So that's why I'd rather get that kind of done up front before we invest too much time in, living together, being married. Then we have to get the lawyers involved and get the divorce. And oh, Lord, help us if we have children, because then it's so much more complicated. But I'm just really open to fighting. And I've shared that with women I've dated. I just really think it's important for us to have at least 3 fights. Oh, I would never want to fight with you. And then for me, it's, well, and I explain, I just need somebody who could really have my back. And because I know I've made countless mistakes in my life, and I like the idea of having a partner who would be willing to bring up the subject that I might be making a mistake.
Yeah, you say the courage to confront you.
I would love to have that woman. And there are courageous women out there, thankfully, who by the millions, who would be that partner if they felt, physically safe and free of the fear of abuse. And then the woman who not only has the courage to confront me, but also the savoir-faire to be able to confront me in an abuse-free manner. To say, we need to talk about this. We can't spend money this way. And then to take it from there and to figure it out. And that's really going to make both of our lives better if we can figure it out.
I would just say, I was saying that you mentioned that a couple's like executives working in a company and what they produce is happiness and
Yeah, we're a corporate entity,
corporate
we and I.
entity, and that's your product. And when conflict
Happiness is our
happens,
product.
when conflict happens, the assembly line gets jammed up, and the resolution of that conflict then keeps the happiness being produced. And
Yes.
that's again, I feel like such a great visual and an idea. Like the goal is happiness. Like you're together because you want to be
Oh,
happy together. But I feel like that even is another irrational belief. Where it's
well,
like,
if you look at my social media comments, there's a significant portion of the community who gets really upset when I talk about happiness.
mm,
But I think very few of us would get married to anybody if we knew that there was a life of unhappiness following that decision. Because the presumption is that we'll live happily ever after together. And I know that sounds a little too fairy tale like to be true. And in some ways it is. It's not like my life is free of problems. We've had health issues, financial issues, all kinds of issues over the years. But my wife has never abused me. I've never abused her. And we've solved our problems, even though we have argued. It's just that our arguments, if you were to be a fly on the wall, you would, this is it. This is they're arguing because we're just talking in an animated way with each other. Nobody's yelling, nobody's name calling. And as we talk and figure it out, like that board of directors and the corporate headquarters, we're restoring the flow of the means of production is back on track. And now we're happy. But happiness is our brain's way. I know we like to talk about the heart, but it's really seated in the brain, isn't it? It's our brain's way of bottom lining it. Hey, dude, this isn't working for you. Hey, there's something really wrong here. And when we're unhappy and the presence of happiness, all right, this is going pretty well, until we get information to the contrary. And I think that trusting feelings is really important. And I don't mean transitory feelings like where I pout and I'm a little mad at her because she won't let me buy the boat I was fantasizing about. She doesn't want to go $100,000 into debt. I'm sure we could pay it off in a year or two. And she's saying, are you out of your freaking mind? No way are we going to do that. That's crazy. I love that we can have those conversations and that, because she adores me and she's president of my fan club as I am of hers, that we know it's all out of love, that we're trying to build something that really works. And I've had enough life experience, maybe, and I think you're old enough to have had enough life experience that you've made a lot of mistakes, and many of them have been serious. So you have to be open-minded about having maybe made one more.
mm,
And so how great is that to have somebody who loves you confront you? I think it's one of the greatest things about marriage.
mm.
And I know my wife would feel the same way because we've each confronted the other. And I think our batting average is we're, equal, pretty close to being 50-50 in terms of who had the more insight on a given situation. I think my mistakes tend to be more in certain areas, perhaps hers in other areas, but we're just two happily flawed, loving people who are able to peacefully and respectfully share our lives with each other. And I think most people watching this would kind of like that. Well, to get that, it isn't luck. I've had people say, well, you're lucky. I'm lucky in the sense of fortunate. I'm not lucky in the sense that the odds were with me and I won the lottery against 1,000,000 to 1 odds.
Yeah. You also had an 18-year marriage prior.
It was a spectacular failure.
Spectacular failure. Right?
Yeah.
You learned a lot. You got a degree. You became a psychologist. You dated.
Marriage and family therapist.
Marriage and family therapist. And there wasn't. And then you thought about it, of what you wanted to do to improve your.
Yeah, and this is maybe part of what we should share too today is when I was going through one miserable failure after another in my search for love, adult love, I was having a great life. I was enjoying my friends. I had my own interests, etc. I had my own home. I was decorating my home and felt really great about that. But I did make a ton of mistakes in my mate selection process. And the first one was my failed marriage. And I committed to a debriefing of that critical incident, very much like what the police or doctors or the military do when there's a very serious failure, a breakdown in the system. And it took me years to really reflect on what was I so attracted to when I picked her out? What was going on in me that found that attractive? What was it about me that stayed as long, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that my loyalty was undeserved? What was going on with all that? And there were so many layers. There are hundreds of layers of answers to those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then once having done that once, and I would encourage people to do that early and often with any relationships that fail, to then go on to the next one and the next one. And I found that it was a great conversation that I had with my current wife for the two of us, because we'd each been married before and we'd each had a rather painful breakdown in that marriage. And we processed it together, what was going on. We would just listen to each other and ask, thoughtful questions. And that was a very enjoyable process, even if, at the end of the day, she had decided this isn't the guy for me and she had moved on. It was still very enjoyable. It was that wonderful part of getting to know her as a human being and seeing what she had going on upstairs, and in terms of her compassion and caring. And I just am so happy relationally for the last 33 years. I want everybody to experience what I'm experiencing. I want everybody to be free of their fear of love, because it is something we mindfully and intentionally build. And yes, of course, we make mistakes, but we can recover from those mistakes and learn to do better and get better and better at this until, voila, we've arrived.
And that's why it's important to take your time, go slow, set that foundation. And I feel like there's even more things we could have touched on today, but I feel like this is definitely a good base to get started.
I hope so. That's my fondest hope, is for everybody to be able to begin experiencing this. And you're right, because everything I talk about is connected to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be talking about this again in the future. Maybe not quite as the way we did it today, but I'm hoping it's helpful to everybody. It's sure been helpful for me.
Yeah, me too. So, all right.
Well, that's the mic drop.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thanks for chatting.
You bet.